I'm sure I would have bought hearing aids much sooner than I did had I actually had somebody I could talk to about the experience of not having them, to moving to them, to some of the issues that can come up by having them. I just wish I had started a little bit sooner than I did.
So you're going to help people today.
Welcome to the Hearing Wellness Journey podcast, an exploration of determination, hope, self-discovery, and triumph. We'll share the personal experiences of those that are living with hearing loss and provide a haven for their stories to show others that they are not alone in this journey. Please welcome your hosts, Dr. Dawn Heiman and Lindsey Doherty.
My name is Dr. Dawn Heiman. Welcome, everyone, to the Hearing Wellness Journey podcast. I am interviewing today someone who actually has been seen in our clinic. Hey, Paul, thank you so much for coming. I am seriously super excited to have you because don't tell anybody, but you're one of my favorite patients. Paul, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Dr. Dawn, and thanks for having me. Let's see. I grew up in a big family. I think there were 6 adopted kids, plus 3 of us originals, I'll call it. Maybe that's not the best way to say it, but we grew up, part of the time anyway, we grew up on a farm. We had goats and chickens, ducks. My dad raised bees for a while, which is interesting because he's allergic to bees. But yeah, we lived out on a farm for a while. And then as we got older and working and things like that, I worked in town, and my dad worked in town, and my sisters worked in town. So we were making 5-6 trips to town every day. So then we decided just to move to town. I was there for a year and then went away to college, moved to Chicago, went to college, met my wife, and then never left the Chicago area.
Excellent.
And married now, 26, 7 years, probably close to 27 years. We have 3 kids, 2 of them in college. Yeah.
That's awesome. So where was the farm? In the Midwest?
Michigan. Yep. North of Traverse City a little bit. Town is called Sutton's Bay, Michigan. Little town compared to Traverse City. It's a little town. So yeah, elementary school, middle school, and high school all fits in this nice little postage stamp area. So all the schools are right there next to each other.
It sounds beautiful and quaint, and what a great place to grow up.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
So tell me, at what point in your life did you start to realize that maybe something had changed in your hearing, or at what point was a hearing loss identified?
Yeah, so this is interesting. I had cancer and radiation treatment and things like that, and now cancer-free 12 years. So that's good. But out of that, I ended up with one of the medications that I was on, started getting ringing in the ears. And it wasn't too long after that I just woke up one morning and my hearing was gone. Wasn't gone 100% gone, but gone as in 90% gone. And one of the doctors that did my cancer surgery, he's an ENT, so I quickly ran to his office and he was able to get me in right away. And because it was a sudden hearing loss, they were able to put me on steroids and the hearing came back. So that happened a number of times, quite a few times. I figured out that caffeine was the trigger for me. So if I drank caffeine drinks, back then Mountain Dew was my favorite. So if I had a lot of Mountain Dew, then I would literally lose my hearing overnight. And usually the prednisone steroids helped it and it came back. But in that whole process, realized that not all of my hearing was coming back. And so visiting an ENT, of course, he has an audiologist there in his office, and I visited her quite a bit. And the hearing wasn't coming back. And so they suggested hearing aids. And she told me how much they were. And I got back up off the floor. And I said, thank you very much, but I'm not coming up with that kind of money. Started wondering what I was going to do. And as luck would have it, I have a friend who works for Phonak. And so I started talking to him, and he suggested that sometimes you can find them used for sale, but that most audiologists, or some audiologists anyway, won't deal with patients like that. They won't take over patients. I'm an avid eBay shopper, or was eBay shopper, now more Amazon, but at my first set of hearing aids, I actually found on eBay and got them for a pretty reasonable price. It was a lot less than paying brand new for them. And then I had, since my friend worked for Phonak, he took them in and they went through the, I won't call it refurbishment process, but he cleaned them up, and he cleans hearing aids. And so he cleaned them up and made sure they were okay. And that's what I met Dr. Dawn, because she was able to fit those on me and program. And I had somebody else who actually already made the ear molds, but Dr. Dawn was able to take those and really make them sing.
Now, here's a caveat. I don't think I knew you bought them on eBay, and I'm glad I didn't. But either way, it doesn't matter. Is my whole thing is bring me what you have, and I'll try to help you. Definitely.
Yep.
But in some sectors, they might say buying hearing aids on eBay is not the best move, just because you don't know what you're getting mainly.
Correct.
But you had someone at the manufacturer to help recondition them, which is good. So you went.
So there was two things about that. And my friend filled me in on the requirements, because if the hearing aids are lost in the mail, they usually will find their way and end up back on eBay. But the hearing manufacturers now paid them out as a claim, in which case the serial numbers are blacklisted serial numbers. So when I was shopping for them, I got the serial numbers and had them verified before I paid for them. The second part was, since my friend was working for the manufacturer, they actually called the patient to find out why they were up for sale. And the patient had recently passed away and had never used them. His family came in when they were cleaning out his room area, whatever the situation was, found the hearing aids in a drawer. So he was able to confirm that they weren't a blacklisted serial number or anything like that, and they were legitimately able to sell them. Yeah. So the second part of it was they were the exact same ones from a model standpoint that the audiologist was trying to fit me with the first time. So I knew from a program standpoint, they were appropriate for my hearing loss. That seemed to fit.
For sure. And at that time, you were so new to the process, you didn't understand maybe, okay, I'll ask this. Did you think that there was value in the hearing aids at that point? How much they cost? Were you feeling like you were struggling with accepting the hearing loss at that point? Do you think it was too fresh, too new for someone to talk about hearing aids, and then boom, they were super expensive too?
At the beginning, yes, I would say it was too fresh, too new to jump in. It was a huge price tag. It was, and this is a long time ago. This is 12, 13 years ago, probably, when I first started having hearing loss. And I ignored it for a while. I went to the employees of the place that I was working at the time, and I said, I have hearing loss. It's going to be a problem. I may ask you to repeat yourself. And I did that for a number of years, 2, maybe 3 years, always constantly positioning myself correctly to hear the person I was working with, asking for repeats, things like that. But yeah, it was really starting to affect things. I won't say at the very beginning it was, but I do consulting for work, and it was very difficult. It's very difficult.
What was it like at home? What was it like at home?
It's all the same kind of thing. saying what a lot, asking for repeats. Actually, I think home was the most difficult because hearing loss is a personal issue. People around you, you can only say what so often before they just don't talk to you anymore, or you don't want to be part of the conversation. You don't hear enough of what's going on, that kind of thing. Family get-togethers with extended family. I would spend a little bit of time with a group of people, but then oftentimes I would just go off to another room and, I don't know, watch TV or sit with the kids while they were watching TV, or, they're not talking to me. So it's a lot easier to fake it.
What was it like after I fit those hearing aids at that time? And I'm not asking because I want accolades on me. I want you to, if I'll cut my part out right now, I'll tell you right now, this is getting edited out, but I would like people to know what it was like. If you could describe having the hearing aids fit correctly and then going back home.
Getting the hearing aids first programmed, getting the ear molds fit to my ears, and getting all of it put together and walking out of the office. Dr. Don, you weren't the first person to do the programming on them, but somebody else was doing the programming on them. And it was an incredible difference. I walked out of the office, and I think the first thing I remembered hearing was the bird singing, and hadn't realized that I hadn't heard a bird singing in probably 4 or 5 years. But it's just something it doesn't really make a huge difference in your daily life, but just not being able to appreciate the outdoors the same, and just never realized that I'd stopped hearing bird singing. Then going home with them, I don't know, it was initially everything is considerably louder, and it was amazing being able to hear without every other word out of my mouth wasn't what anymore, and being able to hear. So it's a big difference. It was a big difference initially.
So how long did you wear those hearing aids?
I probably wore them from 2010 until 2017.
And why did you stop wearing them in 2017? What happened?
My hearing continued to decline, especially on the right side. And I just thought it was time for new hearing aids. And I was right. They were half the size of the ones I was wearing, probably more than half the size of the ones I was wearing. I went from, the behind the ear to the receiver being in the ear. And just the technology that was involved was incredible difference, just huge difference. Having difficulty being on the phone with the hearing aids, I don't know, just the constant or the continuous decline. And they were getting old. They were still functional, at least as far as I knew, but they were getting old and my hearing was changing. And I think 2017 or early 2018 is when I bought the first new set for me from you, Dr. Dawn.
And did you have accessories with that?
I did. One of the things that I liked a lot, the hearing aids themselves had Bluetooth capabilities. You could hook the hearing aids directly to, I don't know, your cell phone or something like that. But I didn't do that. I did initially, but deleted those out pretty quickly, simply because I needed more control over what I was connecting to than Bluetooth allowed. Bluetooth interrupts a lot, especially when you're attached to multiple devices. Bluetooth has a hierarchy in them, and you can't change that hierarchy on the fly. Mm-hmm. So I had Compilots. In fact, I got 2 of them because the batteries do run out. And so I had 2 of them, and I had them pretty much with me all the time. So when one battery ran out, I could just take it off and put the next one on. The Compilot uses the T-coil, which made it a lot easier for me from from a standpoint, you could move your head and things like that. And you weren't dragging a wire everywhere with you. And the connectivity to the hearing aids was incredible. It was literally like wearing earphones all over the place and being able to connect into any electronic device, from laptops to iPads to desktop computers. It didn't matter what. I could quickly unplug and move from one device to another device.
Excellent. And are you still wearing those hearing aids right now?
I'm not. I still have them. Recently started going through the process of the next new set of, actually there was one stage in there. Before I replaced one hearing aid when I lost all hearing in my right ear. I went with
What year was that? When did you lose all the hearing in your right ear? What happened?
The hearing had continued to decline in the right ear. And it had gone to the point where I had talked with a doctor before about getting steroid injections in the ear itself. And the first time I talked to the doctor about it, he did not actually recommend continuing or doing that, because it can help your hearing, but at the same time, the side effects would mean eliminating all hearing. And so I didn't do it the first time. After a while, though, I was finally to the point where I didn't have any word recognition or anything like that in the right side, even with hearing aid on. So I went forward with steroid injection. And the first injection, it's actually a series. I didn't know that at the first time. The first injection helped, and I had hearing return. And then I went back the next week for the second injection, and within 2 hours, it was completely gone. So I was looking for another option. I did talk to a doctor at that time about cochlear implant, and it seemed a very extreme transition from wearing a hearing aid to surgery, and it's a big deal in surgery and things like that. At the same time, I attended a hearing seminar, I guess you would call it. You remember that, Dr. Dawn, back in 2018, I think it was? We were coming to your office and people would stand up and talk, and it was on Facebook Live. And
oh yeah, we used to have coffee talk on Tuesdays.
That's what it was.
People
That's what
stood
it
up
was.
and told
Yep.
stories in my office. Yes,
Yep.
I do remember you coming. Yes.
And then, so one of the people who was there mentioned a Bicross system. And it was not 2 weeks later, and I had a Bicross hearing aid. And that was sufficient, gave me hearing in the right side, connecting to the left side. So that replaced one of my hearing aids. And I have those even to this day. I have that system still. And just a few months ago in April, started to make the transition to the next set of hearing aids. Set one hearing aid, and then moving forward with the cochlear implant.
Yeah. So you're in the process of going through the cochlear implant evaluation for the right side, and then we're just going to wait and see what you and the surgeon decide as what company to choose, and then we'll try to match that implant with the right hearing instrument on your left side. Now, going back through all of this, you talk about this so even keel and it's no big deal, all of this that was going on. But psychologically, how have you dealt with this fluctuating hearing loss that you've been living with for 10, 11 years?
The continuous reduction in hearing, the fact that it keeps changing, word recognition, even with wearing hearing aids and the Bicross system and things like that. Word recognition takes a nosedive unless you have complete control of the environment. In a small office situation, one-on-one, maybe one-on-two, is just fine. The hearing aids were always great. Excuse me. But most people don't live in that kind of world all the time. And so therefore you're out in the world, you're at a restaurant, I occasionally go to conferences, or meetings, conference rooms, that kind of thing. Conference rooms were my worst because they're usually fabulous environments with huge high ceilings and glass and wood all over the place. So everything just echoes and bounces. And so those were terrible. Plus you have 10, 15 people in the same room, and invariably multiple people are trying to talk.
Yeah, super hard in the work environment. So did you ever try a remote mic or anything like that with your Compilot?
I didn't try a remote mic. I'm not exactly sure why. Probably, no, I don't ever remember even talking about a remote mic at the time, actually.
Yeah, and I don't know if I ever thought about it or if you ever told me about these conference rooms, because in my recollection, I felt like you were doing a lot of IT work, connecting into a computer, and I wasn't
That's,
aware.
yeah,
So I apologize for that.
that's what
But at the
most,
same time, let's be honest, Paul, I don't want to sell you another thing because your hearing changed. Like, it kills me to the core to have to say, there's something else you can buy. That's not me.
yeah, it's, conference rooms weren't a big problem. Most of the time I'm in a very controlled environment. Most of my connection is via electronic. It's online meetings, it's telephone. And when I say telephone, I'm doing everything on a computer. So I don't often have to pick up a handset and try to talk on the phone. We have soft phones on my computer and stuff like that. It's the same phone number. You can see I wear headphones. They're large over-the-ear headphones. With the older hearing aids, they were great. Never any problem or anything like that. The new one that I'm testing out right now, I get a lot of feedback in one ear just because it's a small enclosed compartment that's on the one side. Yeah, but it is what it is.
You should talk to your audiologist about that. Maybe she can fix it. To be honest, so to anyone who's listening, if you wear special headsets for work, bring them to the appointment so we can run a feedback check or make adjustments as needed, create a special program. I'm sorry, Paul, that I'm just now finding out about this. So
yeah, I'm sorry. I
looks
didn't
like we have
even
an appointment
realize.
coming up, huh?
Yep. I also have a new device, my new Compilot, my Roger pen, and trying to get that to get figured out. I've got to figure it out for the office and things like that. But my laptop is a little bit different. I don't use the laptop as often. I have a desktop computer at the office that I use most of the time. So that's where it's usually figured out first.
It's so complicated. It's so great that the technology is getting better, but then there are so many variables with connecting into computers and cell phones, and so that Roger pen, can be used as a remote microphone and all that.
Yeah, when I first got the Roger pen, even to this day I have difficulty with the TV. I like the volume 2x probably compared to the rest of the people in the household, just so I can understand words. And we do put closed captioning on, but you still miss a lot trying to read what's going on to what's going on in the movie or something like that. So when I first got the Roger pen, I hooked it up to a TV that had the audio out, and I could put the TV on mute and nobody would hear anything, and I'd have my own concert going on right there. It was great. Cool. It was great. The direct connectivity between the Roger pen and the hearing aids is just, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. I keep worried that it's tuned up too loud because it is so much louder than hearing without the pen. Just the way the microphones turn on and things like that. And that's usually how even listening to the TV or something like that now in the evening, I'll turn on the Roger pen and it will pick up more than without it, including conversation. If other people are having conversation, I can know that they're having conversation and refocus my attention to part of that conversation.
Sure, because it's giving you direct audio input. So someone could be across the room or the TV's across the room and it's coming right up into your hearing aid. So there's that. Plus, because you're not using two ears anymore and you're focusing with only one ear, you don't get the benefit of the stereo effect. To have things clear, louder, closer just makes your life easier because you're using less energy to understand.
Yeah. I have a group that I'm part of on nearly a weekly basis. And the first time I went to the group with my Roger pen, I left the group and people knew I could hear better. They knew I could hear better because of my interaction, reaction. They just knew by the end of the meeting. I had to explain that I wasn't recording them, but they knew I could hear better with the new hearing aid and the Roger pen. So
your participation levels were up. I bet you walked out of there with a little spring in your step. You're like, I'm feeling good. I was able to engage.
Yeah. I can usually hear what's going on. The masks have been very difficult to deal with over the past year and a half. I obviously read lips a lot more than I thought I did. Plus, it's a muting effect on what's coming out of people's mouths. So that's been very difficult. But with the pen there in different areas, I tried it in the middle table, and sometimes the air conditioning might be a little loud or something like that. So moved it to different tables. But it is a smaller room, but it is picking everybody up really well. So it's much easier to hear people in a room environment like that.
Nice. And you took it on vacation, didn't you? Did it work on vacation?
I did. Oh, yeah, I worked a lot on vacation. Not much of a vacation.
You worked a lot while on vacation.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. A client made you work. But when you were eating dinner with your family on vacation, were you able to use the Roger pen with them?
For the most part, we did a couple of times in different restaurant situations where I would try the Roger pen. And again, unless it's I'll call it a nightclub, not really a nightclub, but they had live music. And so a lot of, I would say, overpowering ambient music. The Roger pen picks up too much of that. It's not quite as direct and things like that. But I had years of sitting appropriately. So I find the right seat to sit in where I could hear some of the conversation going on, and instead of trying to use the Roger mic in that kind of situation. But
so what made you decide to have a cochlear implant evaluation? You had a couple, didn't you? Is this your third time seeing someone?
This second time. I did the first one in 2019, and that's when I found out. I was really apprehensive about the surgery process, and I, at that point, had lost all hearing in the right side. Wasn't sure I could go for long periods of time without hearing on the right side. That was really, I thought, going to affect things. And that's when I heard about the Bicross system, which was a lot easier to absorb than surgery. And I had a new hearing aid in 2 weeks. It was great. So this is the second time moving forward with the cochlear implant while I was on vacation. You mentioned taking a little bit more time to look at how much better my hearing could be with the cochlear implant, with devices that communicate to each other, not just the Roger pen and a hearing aid, but the cochlear implant on one side, the hearing aid on the other side, and then also include a Roger pen for other types of hard of hearing situations, whether it's conferences or restaurants or what it is. I just felt that even without the Roger pen, the cochlear implant, I thought, would give me a huge gain in hearing on the right side. And then essentially having a Bicross system, communication system, I thought would be a better hearing, longer term hearing than without it. And then when I went to the evaluation, the technology that's involved was just incredible. I focused in on one manufacturer right away. It escapes me at the moment, but
Advanced Bionics?
Yep, Advanced Bionics, the one that connects with Phonak. Every time I come in for a hearing evaluation, or Dr. Dawn, when you had the hearing aid manufacturers in last year to talk about the products, I attended all those as well, virtually, of course, but those as well, taking notes and things like that about the different hearing aid manufacturers, capabilities, things like that. It's probably not the only one that's out there, but I keep coming back to Phonak each time.
Yeah. You've done your research, and luckily, thankfully, we're at a stage in this age of development and research and technology where when you do your research, you're finding neat things
Hmm.
as opposed to
Very
20
much.
years ago. And there were only 10 channels in the cochlear implant. 7 years prior to that, there were 2 channels. There were 1 channel. Now,
Oh my.
how many channels are in? I'll quiz you.
30,
How many channels
32,
are in the Advanced Bionics
I think
cochlear implant right
30,
now?
32.
32.
Does that sound right?
I think so.
32. It was a lot. They were talking about activating. I was reading one of the person's story, and then the audiologist saying, yeah, we activated channels 1, 3, 7, 9, 11, 13, blah, blah, blah. They just kept going up, and I couldn't believe it. And later still, they would activate other channels later.
Yeah. And then your brain is morphable. You're young, and the sooner you do something, the better you'll be, because we need to retrain your brain, though, right?
Yep. Yep.
I know you're ready. Psychologically, how are you feeling going into the possibility of having a surgery over the next month or so?
It's actually, I thought it would be quicker than it is, that the process would be quicker than it is. So clearly they don't want to just drop you on the table and maybe crudely slice you open and insert something. So they're very particular. There's a lot of testing, a lot of mapping, MRI. I have to have MRI and CT and things like that, which is good. The doctor probably doesn't want to get in there and be caught with not knowing what's going on. So I'm very thankful for that it's not just, it's like getting your nails painted. It's a little more involved than that.
Just a tiny bit. They don't say the term, it's not neurosurgery for nothing. Like, this is legitimate neurosurgery.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Craniotomy. Do you mind if I say your surgeon's name?
No, not at all.
So Dr. Mark Wyatt is a neuro-otologist. So he is the upper echelon of surgeons. It is a big deal, and it's a lot more involved than painting someone's nails.
Yeah. Yep.
And
It's a little more extensive process than I was originally thinking it was, but I started the process and moving forward with it, and I'll probably be looking at surgery probably August or September, realistically. Some of the vaccines that you have to get, you have to take them 2 months apart and things like that. So it's not a quick process. So
it's a big deal. They want to make sure you're ready, and also that your body is ready. The surgeon, like you said, needs to make sure that the ear is appropriate for implantation. And yeah, how is your family dealing with all of this? What do they think about the possibility of you having a major surgery?
it's not the first major surgery I've had. So from that standpoint, I've been there before. So not scared from that standpoint, not nervous about it from that standpoint. They all have really enjoyed the fact that Roger Penn helps with better communication in groups, family units, and things like that. That's been helpful. Really excited about the possibility of hearing better. Maybe just because they want the volume lower on the TV, but probably not the only reason. I'm sure my wife particularly is hoping the retraining and actually responding to things that I hear instead of ignoring them. And when I thought you were talking to somebody else, and that kind of thing. That
you would never say that.
No, that happens a lot. We have 3 kids in the household. She could easily be talking to somebody else. So,
oh, it's true. If you're not alerted to the fact that someone's talking to you, or they come right up to you, or they don't, they're in the other room and they just start talking, you assume they're talking to someone else because your energy is focused on something here, not back there.
Yep. Yeah. And you're in another room and you didn't say Paul to get my attention or anything like that. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about the ability, having a better hearing ability on the right-hand side. So,
I am too. I can't wait. I really hope it's an awesome, easy transition and success for you. I know you're motivated.
I'm very surprised at how quickly they turn on the cochlear implant. 4 weeks after surgery, and you're getting activated. Yeah. So
some places do it faster.
Yeah. And I recently had an experience. My parents have a friend whose son was 7 years old and went to bed hearing and woke up completely deaf. And he's worn hearing aids his whole life. He's 35 now, probably, worn hearing aids his whole life, but they've never really been functional. I saw his first reaction after having dual cochlear implants and getting turned on. And I think he was losing it a little bit, hearing his daughter for the very first time in his life. And she was 7, I think. So first time he's ever heard his daughter.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
yeah. It's going to be eye-widening hearing sounds on your right side again. It's going to be so cool.
My hearing is better than that. I've heard my daughter her whole life, but still having that ability to hear again on the right side, even if it resets to 50-60% of what normal is, it's better than nothing, because I can't hear anything out of it now. It's not just low hearing on the right side, it's no hearing on the right side.
Yeah. And it would be nice for you to be able to choose whether you wanted to respond to someone or not, because you knew they said something and you're like, I'm just going to ignore that.
Yeah, wait a minute, I got to turn on my hearing aid.
Oh, darn, the implant fell off.
Yep.
So what takeaway, or what, is there anything that you would like people to know from this podcast? Is there anything like words of wisdom or any kind of information that you would like to imprint on people because they listen to this podcast?
I guess there's a couple of things. The first one is not all audiologists are the same. And having a friendly audiologist is one thing, but having a friendly audiologist that understands what you're trying to convey with something that is missing or something that is off about hearing is you'll get two totally different responses in the hearing with the hearing visit itself. The second part is, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but be consistent in, if you have decided to move forward with hearing aids, really commit to multiple visits to fine tune those hearing aids for what you like or don't like in hearing. An audiogram tells the audiologist some things about your hearing, but everybody likes their hearing a little bit different. And it's that fine tuning that really makes the difference in word recognition, hearing outside of your normal hearing, I won't say normal hearing range, but what is available hearing range. And it's not a dentist visit where you go in and you get your teeth cleaned and you're done for 6 months. It's invest the time, make the time to go to the appointments one after the other with the appropriate time for learning about the new hearing that you can have in order to get them really tuned. And if you haven't had hearing yet, you really have no idea what you have lost because you can't hear it. You have no idea. I'm in accounting, so if I'm reconciling two lists or two things, it's the things that are gone are the most difficult to find because they're gone. And so from that standpoint, whether you've lost your hearing slowly over the years or not, but really taking your cues from other people, if you find yourself extracting yourself from conversations and such to go to a quiet room by yourself because you're not catching the conversation, the gist of the conversation, things like that. Those are huge indicators to you that you need to be doing something different with your hearing.
Yeah, because you're worth it. You shouldn't ignore it if you can. And going back to, yes, every person is individual and different. And same with, you work with your family doctor, a therapist, a dentist. There are different professionals and your personality might work better with others. But I feel like audiologists are more like personal chefs. We have recipes, and which I will say is best practices, and we try to meet all of those things to make sure that we identify the hearing loss correctly, but then we're also fitting the hearing aids correctly. But you're right. you have your own take on how you want to hear. You also have a unique experience. We cannot get into your head and hear what you're hearing. So we do have to listen. There's the art and the science of audiology. You start with the science and then you apply the art by listening to the patient. And sometimes we have to go off label a little bit because you don't want to hear it like that. And but if it means like you and I working together to give you audibility and clarity because you have that custom mold and we're using real ear measurement and you only have one ear that's functioning right now, we do what we need to do, because I don't want you taking off the hearing aid either because you say, I think it's too soft, and well, what's the point? I want you to have audibility. I want you to live your life and not worry about your ears.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a perfect way to say it. It's the art of applying that hearing to these mechanical devices that really, maybe it just really make them sing.
It takes a really good communicator though, too. The more you tell your audiologist, the easier it is for them. But sometimes we're not really sure what you're saying. That's why it takes a couple appointments. We're like, okay, I have 5 things I can adjust. Do I change all 5 all at once? Or do we take this one step at a time and try to control for variables so that we can find out what is that interesting sound that you're hearing, and we eliminate that without destroying the entire program. So it does take multiple appointments and baby steps and patience.
Yep.
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate you doing this, and especially because I know it's not easy to get on camera and it's not easy to tell your own story and to be vulnerable. But Paul, I think you're going to help a lot of people by doing this. So I really appreciate it. And I say thank you on behalf of everyone who will be listeing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. This brings so much joy to me to be able to give people a platform to be able to connect with each other, even if they're just listening passively and you guys never meet, but your story makes a difference in their life. That's a win. If we can change one person's life, that is a huge win.
I'm sure I would have bought hearing aids much sooner than I did had I actually had somebody I could talk to about the experience of not having them, to moving to them, to some of the issues that can come up by having them. I just wish I had started a little bit sooner than I did.
So you're going to help people today. I really appreciate you, Paul. And please keep communication lines open for me. And thank you.
Yep. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Hearing Wellness Journey podcast. For more information about what we do and the services we provide, please visit our website at hearingwellnessjourney.com/podcast, where you can find more resources based on today's discussion, as well as request to be a member of our Hearing Wellness Journey community on Facebook. That's available for our listeners exclusively on hearingwellnessjourney.com/podcast.